Welcome to a Backyard Ultra podcast. Well, it's the MVP Backyard Ultra this weekend and I am fired up. I thought it would be a good idea to talk all about it, so I brought in last year's top three finishers, Ben Nicholls, Matt Dube and Tim Kacprzak. Here you go. All right, g'day guys, how you going?
All right.
Thanks, Pano.
Good, Pano.
Good, thanks for coming on again. So MVP this Friday. So I thought I may as well get the top three from last year on. But none of you are running at it this year, are you?
No,
I'm not, no.
No.
Was that a tough decision? When was that decision made?
I kind of made that decision when I decided to go over and do Hurdies. I thought it was probably 7 weeks before Hurdies was going to be a little bit too tough to recover. Last year it took me a lot longer to recover than what I thought. And I kind of decided to go to Hurdies instead to see if I could to qualify for the Worlds, and hoping that all the WA guys kind of turn up.
Yeah, because you're on 50 at the moment, so you're probably just a few bars below qualifying for bigs right now, aren't you?
Yeah. So I kind of didn't want to leave myself. I didn't want to leave it all to Dead Cow Gully, just in case something went wrong. So I thought I'll have a crack at two this year, and Hurdies being one of them. And it's a bit of a flatter course as well. So, but I am going to be at MVP because my son Oliver's actually running it, so you'll be able to run some loops with him.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's exciting. I reckon that's almost as exciting as running yourself, I reckon.
Oh yeah, I'm pumped for him. I'm looking forward to see what he does.
Yeah. Yeah. He follows me he sent me a follow request on Strava the other day too.
Yeah, he's getting right into it. He absolutely loves it. Like he's pretty enthusiastic and he's so pumped about it. So I just hope that it all kind of works out well for him.
Yeah. And what about you, Ben? You didn't want to defend your title?
I definitely did want to, but I don't get many chances to do that.
Yeah.
I'm working obviously at the moment. I don't have a heap of annual leave, and seems to be gone are the days where I run races where I only need 1 day's annual leave.
Yeah.
So, and my son's running. He's got a state relay championships in Melbourne on Saturday. So it just all was too much. So,
yeah.
So when you ask when was the decision made, I'm sitting here, and if everything got cancelled, I'd probably still go. So yeah, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, fair enough. Are you planning on going to Hurdies or anything like that, or the Masters?
Not at this stage. Probably most of November and probably the first half of December. Almost a day didn't go by where my wife Camille and I didn't sort of sit down and try and figure out what race we could go to where there would be enough people there to sort of be pretty confident that you could get to the 60 hours just to try and lock in that bigs. But honestly, it was like 35, 40 days in a row where we were looking at calendars and looking at kids' stuff and work stuff, and eventually just sort of said, this is not really, this doesn't really feel like this is what running's about. It's getting a bit hard. So just put my faith in the universe and see what happens at this stage.
Yeah. So you think you're probably going to ride the lightning and just see if your 56 gets you to bigs?
At the moment, that is the plan. I think realistically, my best probably result is that I'll be on the wait list.
Yeah.
I think I'm about 67th out of 75 at the moment. And I know there's a couple of Aussies I reckon that are behind me, which one would be Tim and the other one would be Aaron Young, that we spoke to the other day. I reckon they'll probably go above me at some point before August. And then there's the Masters in Germany, which I know the guy that's organising that is talking that up to be a pretty good field. So I think yeah, it's pretty likely that I'll get pushed down those 7 places, but 8 places, whatever it is. But, yeah, family and work, and
Yeah.
life finds a way to get in the way.
Yeah.
I would love to go.
Sorry, Ben.
But yeah, I would definitely love to go. It's definitely, it would be a huge thing. So yeah, come later in the year if there's a chance, maybe I'll jump on and just try and wing it.
Yeah. So if you do make the list of, you'll go basically.
Yeah.
Cool. How are you going, Matt?
Yeah, good. I can help you out, Tim. Yeah, two backyarders in 6 weeks. That will be very tough because I paid for it last year. So I think you're making the right decision to hold off on MVP to really prioritise Hurdies. And I think I actually just not spoke to. I was messaging Ben Hurst today actually, because I thought he might be going to MVP and I wanted to find out for sure. And he's done the exact same thing. He's going to go to Hurdies. So it should be a good list of interstate people there. So yeah, good luck to you.
Yeah.
As for me, now I would absolutely love to be back at MVP. MVP is very important to me. It was my first ever ultra marathon and my first ever backyarder. And if I wasn't sort of unfit and just getting back to fitness now, I'd definitely be doing it. But I've really battled with getting my knee back into shape post Christmas and post October, and I'm just sort of turning the corner now. But MVP is obviously out of the question. But I'll definitely be there. You know that, Pato. I'll be crewing, or just I'll be there to support anyone in the pit lane, including you, Pato. You know, I know you want to get to that 100-mile mark, so I'll be there with you the whole time.
Yeah, awesome.
And you know, there's a couple of other people that I know that are going to be there. I'll be supporting them as well. So it should be great. And now that you're going to be there, Timmy, it'd be fantastic to see your son there. That'd be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. So have you guys put the feelers out and heard of anyone else who you know is going to be there for sure?
No, I haven't. I want to message Brett and just find out, but Brett's the race director, obviously. But no, I didn't.
No,
It'd be good to see. It'd be good. Yeah, it'd be good to see someone kind of that we don't know come through and have a good old crack at it. I'd like to see the record go, and just kind of entices you even more to want to go back next year.
Yeah. But the weather last year was a lot hotter than is forecast for this week. So conditions-wise, it won't be as hard as far as heat goes.
It still looks a bit windy though. It looks windy and a bit cold and maybe even wet. And
yeah,
that throws up its own challenges.
The Saturday's still 23 and sunny though. I mean, if you get a sunny day, it's hard, I reckon. Hard in the sun.
I reckon the hardest thing will be, depending on how much rain they get Thursday and Friday, if any of those crossings have water on them. So there's a couple of floodways, and yeah, if you're getting your feet wet every lap, that's going to make a big difference.
Yeah. And I saw, Tim, you did a few laps around there recently as well. Was it flooded then, or was it all?
It was perfect. It was. Yeah, I took my son because he wanted to check out the course, and we were meant to do 3 laps, and he was super duper keen, so we ended up doing 4. And even after the 4, he felt good. He goes, "Oh, I could have done 5." I bloody rolled my ankle in a divot after the first lap, so that was a bit of a klutz. But it was, the course looked in pretty good condition, and for what I remember, it wasn't as bad as what I remember it. But I don't know how Ben and Matt were doing 48-minute loops at like a 30 plus hours, because that was just great. I'm like, me and Ollie were running it, and I think our best was maybe 40 minutes to 45 minutes, but I'm like, and we were super duper fresh, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm kind of feeling it. And to slow down only another 3 minutes after 40 hours is just insane. Because that hill, it's big, it's still there, it hasn't shrunk.
Yeah, I think what's my favourite, or what I really like about MVP, and I think all of you three sort of have echoed this before in other meetings that we've had, is that MVP is perfect in the way that it tells you exactly when you should be running, when you should be walking. There's no question about finding your own pace or finding your own rhythm, that the course is perfect at telling you that anyway.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that. It didn't feel like I went there thinking, saying to my son, maybe 52, 54 minutes, try and stick at those kind of paces. And then we were doing it, and I'm like, no, just walk the hills and see how you go. Just shuffle along and walk the hills. And yeah, and actually, like you said, Matt, it tells you where you should walk and where you should, run. And it's not as difficult as it sounds when you're looking at like 160 meters of elevation.
Mm. When you did the practice run the other day, were you like finishing a loop, waiting for the hour to come by and then starting again? Yeah. And
so I was trying to see what a good time for him to have a rest was, and we actually found that 7 minutes was almost the perfect time to rest. Anything beyond that, and we were just twiddling our thumbs.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he's going to go, I don't know how deep he's going to go, but he's not going to need to be sleeping or anything like that. So I don't think he's going to need to be sleeping. So he doesn't need to do 45, 48 minute laps. So keep it to a minimum so you don't cool down too much. Because that's what ended up happening. Like even on that first night, I remember 6 or 7 hours in, everyone was running around like the Tin Man. Because we're doing 45-minute loops, and after 15 minutes we couldn't even get going again.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Tim, how old's your son, Tim?
He's 14.
Oh wow. He'll be the youngest in the field, I think.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the youngest backyard ultra runners in Australia, I reckon.
I'm not sure. We were talking about that when we were doing the loops. We're talking about it. We're like, I wonder what's the world record for a 14-year-old? I'm like, don't even look at it. I'm like, don't even. But no, he's super keen. He's right into it. So I'm glad that he's kind of like, if it was purely done on enthusiasm, he'd hit 24 hours, no worries. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes, and it'll be just a good experience for him, I think, if he enjoys it and wants to take it further.
Yeah, sure. So what are some of the memories you've got from last year's race? Like anything worth any stories about last year's race you can tell us?
Geez. It's a long time. Ran with Tim for 30 hours straight, I think. I know where he gets his enthusiasm from.
No! I remember some cool times. Like I remember trying to chase Matt down, and me and Ben trying to do faster laps, slower laps, faster laps to see where he was at, and then he was running. It was, I didn't think that Matt was going to break. Well, I broke before Matt anyway. But he was, whatever you were doing, Matt, you were doing it perfect, because I got more into my own head watching what you were doing in reaction to what I was doing. So, and then in the end, I broke. I had some blistering issues, but it's funny how early on in your kind of backyard careers, you tend to do a lot more, trying to outwit the other person until you find yourself and what you want to do in the event. Like nowadays, I'm like, I want to set, this is my target, and that's what I'm going for. I don't really look at anyone now anyway, because that's the mistake I made that day. I was too busy looking at Matt and not worrying about what I could control. So yeah, chasing Matt at night, lap after lap, that was pretty fun.
Yeah. And did you know he was doing that, Matt?
Oh, look, there was definitely a bit of cat and mouse going on because obviously at this stage, I didn't know Ben or Tim, and Tim and Ben obviously knew each other. And so they were very much sort of spending a bit more time together. And we got to maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. This is Saturday, so Sunday morning. And my times were really sort of slowing down, just, that witching hour. And my wife said to me, look, you got to change something up because your times are, you're probably dropping a minute every lap at the moment. And that's not a good sign. And so I said, well, stuff it. I'll just start running sort of a bit more fearless. And from that next lap, for about the next 6 or 7 laps, I just started running a lot harder on the downhill segments. I still walked, obviously, the uphill segments. But all the flats in the downhill, I really sort of worked a bit harder. And to be honest, it felt great because it loosened my whole body up and I was carrying no injuries at the time. And look, to be honest, I thought I was going to win the thing at 6 o'clock in the morning. I really did. Especially when Tim pulled out, I thought, oh, Ben, they're buddies. Ben will probably go a couple more. We'll go to the record, which was 36 at the time, and then we'll shake hands, have a hug, and have a drink or something like that. But Ben was ready to run all day, and the heat on Sunday, it just got to me, and I wasn't prepared. So in the end, I just wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about that. Actually, I remember Matt sort of looking very stoked when Tim pulled out for a bit.
True.
He thanked me. I remember. Thanks, man. Thanks. I'm like, damn it, what a pull out.
So, like earlier in the race, I don't know, maybe like the 20-hour mark or something. I remember me and Tim and I were talking, sort of about who was in the race, and I was looking at a guy called Ross McLean, who's a really handy runner, but more of a track runner, a trail runner. But he's if you look him up, he's got some good results. And there are a couple of other people, and we were talking about it, and then Tim comes back to me at one point. I think he must have run a lap with you, I reckon, Matty. And he came back and he said that other guy, that guy that ran it last year, he's going to be hard to beat. He's really into this. I was like, oh yeah, right. Because I hadn't sort of, to be honest, like because you were so far in front, I hadn't seen you most of the day, and I just thought, I think this guy's probably going too quick. And this heat will get him, but yeah, I was wrong there. That was a bit of a surprise. I mean, Ross pulled the pin. I honestly thought he was a really solid chance for a win, and he just pulled the pin at 24 or 25, and that just, for me, opened it right up. And it was just me and Tim and Matt left after that, and I know that there were 5 or 6 other people, but yeah, I was pretty certain that I knew who the final 3 were going to be at that point. Just played out just like that.
And Ben, did you have a target in mind, like a point where you knew you were going to stop, or do you reckon you just would have kept on going until you were the last one standing?
Yeah, I thought, completely honestly, I thought that the Australian record was not high enough.
Right.
I thought it was achievable.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was probably why I never really mentally struggled, because I just kept telling myself, every time I thought about quitting, I sort of would say to myself, well, yesterday you thought you were going to run 52 hours and, we're at 33.
Yeah.
Like, nothing's changed. What's up? Just harden up and do another lap. But having said that, I actually injured myself about 70 Ks in. I think it might have been about 67. I remember looking at my watch going down that hill. I just popped a muscle in my left shin. And I never got it looked at, but it definitely felt like a bit of a tear, like it was a really sharp, sudden pain. And I told Tim about it a few laps later. He goes, "How you going? How you travelling?" I went, "Mate, I'm injured. Like, I'm genuinely injured. I've done something to the leg." And he goes, "Oh, what have you done?" So I told him what I've done. And I said, "It's really sore. I'm a bit worried about it." He goes, "Yeah, but it'll go numb." I'm like, yeah, I guess it will, but I think I've hurt myself. He goes, "Yeah, you'll be right, sure." He goes, "Well, what will Camille say when she gets here?" That's my wife. She wasn't there at that point. And I said, "Well, to be honest, I think she'll just tell me to harden up." And I kept running, and I think it might have been about 36 hours before I told Camille that I hurt my leg, and that's exactly what she said. Pretty much, she just said, "We've come all this way."
Yeah.
So she didn't. Neither of them would let me have an out. So and it did go numb.
It did, yeah.
So,
do you have any like MVP specific tips for running the course?
walk the big hill.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, I've got one. Like, obviously, because it's a summer run, so the heat plays a big part. The great thing about MVP is that you circle back to the start line at least twice every loop. So sort of making the most of that aid station, I felt was really good. Even less so about like drinking, more about just having something to eat, because I found in the summer events, when you're in your pit lane, like eating and drinking at the same time in the heat, I found that it really sort of stops you for really plays with your hunger. So I felt separating drinking and eating by eating during the loop, I found that really helped, because especially during the day when it's really hot, you come back to your camp and all you want to do is drink something really cold and cool down. And eating food is the last thing on your mind. I don't know about you guys, but that's how it plays out for me. And so I made a big effort to eat on the loop so that I wouldn't have to eat a lot when I was at my at the end of the loop, and making use of that drinking fountain. That's that little drinking fountain that's on the way. I made sure every single loop I took at least a fair bit of water in at the drinking fountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to, a lot of my nutrition's liquid nutrition. I have a lot of tailwind, so my solid food intake is not huge ever at any event anyway. I don't like too much in my belly, but this kind of format, and I think this is not just for MVP, but for any backyard ultra, you can actually eat a little bit more. I find that it's a lot easier to digest food, but not too much. And I think a couple of other people you've had on the podcast as well have mentioned similar things, where they'll have their main meals still, and then they'll have like snacks in between. I think that's important. I've had a few events where not even backyard ultras, but like I've had a nice like toasty, and then in the next like an hour later, I'm like full of beans for the next 3 or 4 hours. Like really feeling that having that to look forward to is always really good. So I don't think that you get that if you're constantly putting food in. You don't get that. Like, it's nice to get that spike, but I don't feel the come down either, because if you're doing something like tailwind or a liquid nutrition, you've always got that sustained energy. But if you have a little bit of food, it just kind of picks you up, but doesn't drop you like it would if you're just eating food and having water.
Yeah.
That's what works for me.
Yeah. I've actually got a whole nutrition plan ready for this one. I'm figured out what I'm going to eat between each loop, and I've actually got a water bottle I'm going to take with me for each loop as well. So I'm going to be drinking.
Yeah, I do the same. I take a handheld with 300 ml of tailwind in it, because I like to have that kind of sustained thing. You never know, Pato. You might be the dark horse to take it out.
But I'm pretty determined. Like, I'm not going to set myself a limit. I'm just going to keep going until I just can't go anymore. And I'm not going to let myself just not get out of the seat. Like, if I'm going to stop, it's going to be because I time out.
Yeah, that's the best way to approach it. Like timing it. I think saying like I never ever say to myself anymore that I'll go until I can go no more, because then as soon as one little problem comes up, then you make it a bigger problem, and then you end up giving yourself a reason. But if your reason, if your out is I'm timing out, or if your out is I'm going to do 50 hours, then you'll work as hard as you can towards that goal. It's almost like even in training, you would find everyone finds this. If you tell yourself you're going to run 30 Ks in training, at 25 Ks, your body feels trash. Right? But if you had told yourself that you're doing 60 Ks that day, at the same point, you're like, actually, I don't feel too bad. But by 50 or 55 Ks, that's when you feel trashed. It's almost it's that mental game that you can, that you play with yourself.
Yeah, psychological.
Mm.
Do you reckon, did you guys sleep on the first night, or did you just stay awake the whole time?
I sleep from about 5 hours in, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think if you don't fall asleep, you don't fall asleep. But if you don't give yourself a chance, then you can't.
I think I try to, but especially the first lap when there's still 60 people in it, all trying to run through the night. It's quite hard, like it's exciting. You've just started an ultra marathon. I find it I try my hardest. I close my eyes. I lie back in the chair. I try my very hardest, but I don't think I have any success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm about the same. I reckon MVP last year, I don't reckon I slept a wink. I closed my eyes a lot and tried to meditate. And so I got rest. I'd say I got rest. I didn't get sleep as such. Mm. At the Worlds back in October, I reckon I got heaps more sleep then. But then again, it's just practicing. Once you understand that you're going further, then you understand that you're going to need sleep sooner and stuff like that. So, like, I didn't anticipate going for 30 hours, at MVP last year. So I kind of thought, 30, 40 hours, I can go that whole lot without sleep. I've done that before. So, but now it's almost like take it when you can get it.
Yeah. So obviously all three of you ran at the SAT Champs. Did any of you, or what did you learn from that one that you're going to use for future backyard ultras, if you learned anything?
What I learned, my biggest thing, what I learned was that I probably had too many distractions.
Right.
For me personally, I had a lot of friends and family come, which was amazing for the first day and a half, 2 days. But I think that beyond that, if you're trying to prioritize sleep, it's a lot more difficult to do that. And it's like I love the support. That's my biggest driver at every event that I do. Seeing my wife and kids and stuff like that. I think Ben did it perfectly. His kids came down. He got to see them and spent time with them on that first day. But then not having them there later, you kind of feel like you can focus more on on your needs and what you need to do. And I suppose as parents, you tend to not do that. Like if your kids are around, you tend to make sure that their needs are taken care of. And I think that's it didn't. Yeah, I couldn't prioritize myself and my own rest. So I think that's the biggest lesson that I took away from that. Because aside from that, I had a pretty good event.
Yeah. Ben?
Yeah. Probably Camille and I think, are pretty good problem solvers. She's a nurse in ED, and I don't know, we just sort of are good off the bat. But in what took me out of the race was my left knee just sort of went pop, coming down the hill again. And other than that, I was going okay. I was definitely starting to fade. I knew I was getting towards the end of my race, but I think maybe another 10 hours or something was a semi-realistic expectation. And then my knee went pop, and I went out on lap 57, and I just couldn't run. I tried about 15, 20 times to break into the top. And I was thinking, you've only got to go 59 minutes because everyone from here is going to get you another hour close to the bigs. Like, you don't have to worry about winning. You just have to try and clock up as many more laps as you can. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't get under, I think, like 9 minutes 45. But it was like 3 days later, it just dawned on me, I had tape and bandages and, like, why didn't we tape my knee up? It just didn't occur to us.
Yeah.
And so I think what I learned out of that is that potentially if I was going to do something like that again, especially if it was such an important event, is to write down a list of things that could go wrong, things that I know have gone wrong in the past, and just solutions, and just have it sticking on the side of the tent or something like that, somewhere where it's visible. You don't have to pull it out and look at it or go looking for it. You might see it every time you walk out of the tent. And it just would have been a reminder that you've got a heap of tape. How about you try and take me up? Because I didn't have to go much faster. So, yeah, that was a disappointment when I realised that. We hadn't done anything about my knee to set me back out there. So.
Yeah, because you were probably both pretty tired and you just couldn't.
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah. Because it was just the two of us, and Camille had, I was sleeping 3 minutes a lap, and she was sleeping 15 to 18 minutes a lap.
Yeah.
55 hours in, we were both just shattered.
Yeah.
So, and just not thinking.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, definitely a couple of things. The satellite event was definitely a huge celebration and success for Tim and Ben, but obviously less so for me because I was clearly, it wasn't my best race, and the reality is I was overcooked when I got to the start line. You guys know I did an event just 5 weeks prior, and I just never recovered. And so the thing I learned is obviously you just got to sort of look after your body and to do, if you're entering such a big race and such a big, potentially long events with huge miles, if you're mentally checked out and physically, overcooked, you're going to struggle because I was shot pretty early on, and I look back at it in hindsight, and I don't regret running at North of Vic because obviously, I met a lot of good people there, and I was lucky enough to win the race, so I don't regret it at all. But I'll always be thinking, what could have been if I was fully fit. But on a positive note, a really good thing about that event was when everyone asks me now, how was the event? I can say I've now seen something that I didn't think was possible. When up well and truly hours and hours and days after I was done, and these 3-4 guys were still going, particularly Phil and Ryan, they tend to get all the glory, but the guy that came third, Rob Parsons, I remember watching him run at hour 15 or hour 10, and I thought, he's probably going to be the first one out. He looked like he was the slowest and didn't look very comfortable. But that guy just kept on going and going and going. And it was unbelievable to watch him just continuously get to the start line. Everyone sort of knew that, we all know Phil's story and Ryan as well. Ben, obviously, Ben's Ben. But watching Rob Parsons just sort of grind out hour after hour, it was amazing. And I've seen things now that I didn't think were possible.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. Rob's the story out of that race.
Rob was the MVP.
76 hours is huge, and I've no doubt that Phil could have gone further, no doubt whatsoever. But yeah, Rob running 73 hours out of nowhere, I think it's just incredible.
Yeah, and from what I wasn't there when he dropped out, but from what I hear, it looks like Rob, he could have kept on going too. It was more mentally finished than physically finished, from what I hear anyway.
Yeah, I think I did hear something similar about that.
So, Matt, have you got any more backyard ultras planned this year?
Definitely. All roads for me at this point will lead back to North Vic. I've already confirmed with Robbie, who's going to be at. Robbie is the director of North Vic Backyard Ultras, and he's actually going to be at MVP. He's going to be racing his first backyarder. Yeah, cool. So I've already committed to him that I'll come back and try and win again. Well, I'll give it my best, and I'll make sure I'm 100% fit for the race. Yeah. So that's definitely my next race, and then there's no doubt that I have to come back to MVP. After coming a third, getting an assist as well, I couldn't possibly not come back in 2024. That'll be my first race in 2024 for sure.
Yeah, and did entering the Masters or anything like that cross your mind at all, or not really?
Yes, but no as well. Like I'm very happy here in Victoria. Yeah. I don't look. 99% of all my runs are out my front door. I don't need to travel to get satisfaction with my races, and nothing against people that do, obviously. But I've still got a lot of things to tick off in Victoria before I feel like travelling. If I have successful events at North Vic and MVP, then of course I'll think about travelling up north. But until then, I'm happy to focus on some unfinished business in Victoria.
Yeah, fair enough. And Ben, from what I see, you're pretty your main another one of your main focuses is down under 135. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. So that was another part of just letting go of the qualification, the big thing for the moment. It was just too much of a distraction. Down under is obviously not something you can do half-heartedly. I'm very keen to give that a good crack. But for anyone who's listening who thinks that I might be worth following on the day, I'm not expecting to finish.
Don't say that.
I want to finish. Don't worry. It'll be it would be almost up there with representing Australia. But man, that thing's crazy.
Yeah, just run the whole way then.
Yeah, well, I can't. I've run with Tom plenty of times. So and Tim, like I've run with Tom and Tim plenty of times. I run with Tim in the mountains, and I'm well aware that I need to run a different race than Tim. So I'm the tortoise and he's the hare. That's for sure.
Yeah, so you catch me every time.
No, that's only if I make it to the finish line. But yeah, so that's definitely my focus, and like I said, Neil and I talked about it a lot. We were very close to pulling the trigger on Herdies. We're from WA. We've got family just north of Perth, and we would have had babysitters for the kids and everything, but it was a really bad date for us.
Right.
And I've talked to Timothy Walsh about the Masters, and talked to Sean Koesler about a few things. And short answer is I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. And so because you guys have ridden have run the Sat Champs and you've got such high numbers, like do you get like offers to run at places, like do race directors ring you up and say, oh, do you want to run at my event and stuff like that? Or is it just like you have to make the approach?
A little bit, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I already knew Sean before the Sat Champs. I volunteered at Unreasonable East last year, and just been in contact with him a few times in the past, so that was a no-brainer. But yeah, and obviously I met Timothy at the Sat Champs, so yeah, it was sort of already in contact with those guys. It's not like they're just coming out of the blue.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty good approach if you want your event to go far, to approach people that have gone further, and yeah, it helps a lot. Like a couple $100 race entry if you're going to fly over to an event, it does help. Every couple, like everyone's, everyone works. We're not professional athletes getting sponsorships. So when a race director does offer a free entry, it's quite nice, and so yeah, it does make it a little bit easier to get over there and do things.
Yeah. Tim, one of the things that I noticed when you finished at the Sat Champs was like you were having really bad hallucinations. That was the word on the street anyway. So, like, can you tell us about what the hallucinations are like?
I think going out on my last loop that I actually finished, I'd hurt my knee, and I'd thought, oh man, my ITB's gone. But I managed to shuffle, and I'm like, okay, if I can keep this pace like this and it doesn't hurt, I'll be okay. Maybe it's not my ITB, maybe it's something else. So I kept on running, and then I think that was like the one thing that just kind of, because mentally I felt like I was pretty strong up until that point. But then I started to see things like it was, it was pretty crazy. Even earlier on, like my daughter was sitting there watching me, and I was picking at the grass, and she was asking me what I was doing, and I'm like, trying to pick up the keys. I'm trying to pick up the keys. And she's like, Dad, there's no keys there. Like, so I was picking up, felt like there was bunches of keys everywhere on the grass. So that was during the day. But then, so that night it kind of intensified. And like at one moment I was coming back on the loop, and I couldn't even keep a straight line running. I was all over the road, and I'm like, oh, this is not great. And then I'd actually stopped, and I'm like, where am I? Like, how could I have taken a wrong turn? It was an out and back road, and I thought I'd taken the wrong turn. And then I've kind of come around the bend where you can kind of see down the hill, and someone must have turned their flashlights on, and the fog had rolled in, and it looked like there was like a giant UFO about to take off, and the road led to the doors of the front of the UFO where the lights were, and that was the middle of the road, and it just freaked me out. I walked really slowly until, because I knew it wasn't real, but my vision my eyes just couldn't focus on what they needed to focus to piece together that was fog, that was a car, this is a hill. Everything had just kind of morphed into this UFO, and that's when I kind of come in, and I'm like, oh, this is just too intense. And then I was saying to my crew, I'm like, I can't go back out. I cannot go back out. I'm seeing UFOs. And they're like, no, you got to go back out. They're yelling at me to get back out. And then I went back out. And then I come back with my tail between my legs. I'm like, nah, I'm done. But even then, when I was done, they were kind of holding me, and I was looking down at the ground, and it was like the whole ground was covered in old antiques. Like if you go to like an old flea market or something like that, where people have got antiques on like little rugs set up everywhere, and I was trying to avoid them when I was walking, and they didn't know what I was doing, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to step on all these antiques, and I'm like, they were just everywhere. But that was probably the most intense hallucinations that I had. At that event. But even Ben came up to it at one stage with like a couple laps before that, and he's like, I'm seeing cards, like playing cards and all this other stuff, and I'm like, oh man, don't talk to me. I'm having my own trouble. I was having some deep hallucinations, but I've had pretty bad hallucinations before that I've been able to deal with and just kind of manage, and they're just visual things that I can see, and I can kind of move past it, and it's all okay. Even like sounds and stuff, like little kids talking or just whispers and things like that I've had as well. But you can move past all that as long as you're not like, I'd almost lost all sense of like what I was doing. So that's why, in the end, that's what did me in that event. In the end, the sun just didn't come up fast enough. I reckon if the sun was coming up in another hour, I might have made it today, and things might have changed for me. But So, and I think that was just a lack of sleep, being tired, and not resting like the other competitors did.
But when I spoke to Ryan, he was saying like he reached a stage where he didn't even know he was in a race anymore. He was like out there running, and he didn't even know why.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's almost like if you have like Ryan meditates. Like I've meditated in the past as well, and on and off now. And you almost, when you meditate, you can almost get yourself to a point where you actually, and you open your eyes and you're like, oh, I'm here, you know. So it's almost like that state, and I think that's where you go when you're really depleted and really tired. That your mind kind of shuts off a bit.
Yeah. So Matt, and do you have hallucinations as well?
I didn't, not at the satellite champ, so I wasn't in the race long enough for that.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, I think my first year at MVP, so going back a couple of years now, my first time running through a second night was the first time that I'd ever sort of started to hallucinate. I just the darkness and your torch just focusing on one little spot on the road, and then you're just running to that spot. That really played with me, and before you know it, you sort of, if you blink, and every bit of light looks exactly the same, and before you know it, you sort of lose orientation, and you don't know where you are.
Yeah.
And that's probably the only time that I've really sort of questioned, like, hang on, have I lost all sense of reality here? Because I no longer know what I'm doing. But since then, the other events that I've done, I haven't been too bad.
Mm. And so it sounds like you were hallucinating pretty bad, Ben, at Sat Champ.
No, not running. When I was trying to sleep, obviously Tim was still in it, so I have a feeling it was about 49 or 50-ish hours.
Yeah.
And
you'd just come into the corral. When you said it to me, like the look, like you'd seen a ghost.
Oh yeah, I was kicking back in my chair because I would just come in, eat, drink, and then fold the chair back, put my headphones in, and go to sleep. And I closed my eyes, and everyone would have seen a scene like this in a movie somewhere, where they're trying to brainwash someone, and they just flash all those images up in front of them as like a nuclear explosion, and all sorts of stuff comes up. Anyway, but it was just like that, like just almost like a television screen right in the middle of my vision when I had my eyes closed, and it was like fruit and a pair of scissors and a teddy bear. And they were just like flashing up really quick, and it made it impossible to sleep. There was no going to sleep, but there was also this sort of battle going on in the back of my mind. I was freaking out. I'm not going to get any sleep. Like, shit, I'm not going to get any sleep if this keeps going on. And then there was another part of my brain that was like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
It was, I've never had anything like that. And then I'd open my eyes and it would just go out. It was just every time I closed my eyes, lying in the chair. So, but then out running, I don't think I really had anything. There was at some point, I had a walk point because it was so flat for most of that course. I had a walk point between a roadwork sign and a driveway, and it was my longest walk. I think it was like 300 or 400 meters, and I looked forward to it on every single lap. And then at some point, in like a weird time of the morning, the roadwork sign disappeared. And it was dark, and I'm looking for this walk point, and it was just gone. And then I could not. All of a sudden, I was on a dead straight gravel road up and back, and I was literally lost. I didn't know if I was 2Ks into the, because I don't record my lap distance. I didn't know if I was 2Ks in. I didn't know if I was 5Ks in. I had no idea where I was. So that was the most confused I got. And that was for a few laps. It wasn't until the sun came up that I realised, oh, the sign's gone. That's why I can't find it. It's not here anymore. But that was bizarre to be out on a 6K up and back and not know where you are.
Yeah. It was a bit, I mean, I can imagine like when there's only a few people left, like in the middle of the night when it's dark, it would have been a bit scary, like hallucinating and like not knowing where you are kind of thing.
You almost, what you find with the hallucination, if you haven't had experienced them before, what you find with hallucinations that they slowly creep up. So it just becomes your normal. Like, so for me, like on a second night, I might see like little birds, like a bird or a bush be a small animal or something like that. So it's almost like it's not a hallucination, but it is, because it could actually be a wallaby or it could be a wombat. But then they get more, they intensify. So it's almost like it slowly gets worse and worse and worse. So by the time it's bad, you're like, oh yeah, well, yeah, no, I suppose it's bad. Yeah, I'm already used to it. I've seen other things, so it doesn't freak you out as much. And even if it's in the dark, like you've been doing it for so long, and you're like, oh, what else? Like, what else could happen? What else could go wrong? I'm sore on this. I've been trying to tell myself not to stop for the last 50 hours. Anything, you know.
So. I heard like on maybe the first or second night there was a car, like just a random car stopped in front of the runners and started doing burnouts. Did that happen? Would you remember anything like that happening?
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah. I remember a car hoomed up and down a fair bit at one point, and I do think I remember someone saying that they had done a burnout in front of them or something like that. But yeah, it was.
The big thing that I remember was, didn't someone knock off the turnaround point, and we're all just standing around looking for it, all with our hands just open, going, well, I'll just turn around and start running back.
Yeah.
And then when it got replaced,
we got a branch.
It was easily like 20 metres further than it had been before.
Yeah, we all just kept running, hoping to see a little witch's hat type thing or the light that we turned around at, and it just never came. And then we just all sort of looked at each other and were like, well, we better make one then. Yeah, no. And then we just guessed, and there you go.
I remember at the start of one of the loops, shortly after that was gone, like Peter Clark, the race director, like announced the whatever they are, the stop signs were stolen by some bogans.
I think just to be safe, they put the new ones up further away, just so that no one can say that they've been moved closer. But actually took 40 metres every lap. That really drops me off.
So Tim, last time we spoke as well, like I mentioned that it looks like this year was like your best running year, and since then you did just 50 hours at the Sat Champs, and then you also came third at the Coast to Cozzy. So you've absolutely had a smasher.
Yeah, that was. I pushed one event probably too many. I reckon I was pretty cooked after the Coast to Cozzy. My last probably 25 k's to Coast to Cozzy was the most draining and physically demanding that I've ever experienced. It was so hard, and I think that it was. But I'd already committed to that event, and I also wanted to see whether I could back up 6 weeks after doing the hardest event that I've ever done to do the second hardest event that I've ever done. So, and I managed to back up. I finished the event. I was relatively pleased with my time. I was just disappointed that I wasn't as fresh as what I could have been, because now after Hurdies, I'm going to try and back up and do Down Under. So and Down Under is probably the hardest event in Australia, and that's going to be an interesting one, especially if I get what I want to get at Hurdies. I reckon that there won't be too much running in between those two events. There'll be a lot of recovery, which is pretty much what I did between the Stat Champs and Coast to Cozzy. I don't think I had a week over 60 Ks, which for me is like, I'm like, oh man, I've got to do more Ks to have the confidence to do a big event. But that alone just gave me the confidence to go, hang on, I actually don't need to do big Ks between events. It's almost like you do a pre-season of footy, and then you kind of do it, you turn up every week. You don't have to do a heap of training in between. So, so I'm hoping, that Hurdies kind of gets me the big number that I need, and, recover well to be able to do Down Under.
Yeah. I saw the video of you finishing Coast to Cozzy, and like you're climbing up the very peak. It looks like you're like definitely a bit wobbly on your knees, on your leg.
Yeah, well, I was throwing up all the way up the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't keep any food down. My heart rate had dropped to like 80 when it should be like 130. So I was having a lot of trouble. And even when I finished, I was like all groggy on my feet. I couldn't really keep my balance.
Yeah. Guy, when the guy shook your hand, he was pretty much holding you up. It looked like
Yeah. I was I wasn't in a good place. I was pretty glad that was over. The last 50 Ks of that race was just insane. But I was glad I did it because I forgot how much I actually enjoy that kind of racing.
Yeah, awesome. MVP this week. You won't be there, Ben, but I guess you'll be following along on the results page.
I'm going to try and get there.
Oh, you're going to be coming down? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm going to try. Yeah, I'm working Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm working through the whole thing, but if I can't get Saturday off, I'm still tossing up whether to leave work at 6:30 on Friday and drive down, say hello, drive back again.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I would love to get there at least.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. I'll see you all on the weekend at MVP.
Yeah, good luck. Have a good, nice restful week, mate.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, rest up. You've got 100 miles to go, minimum.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, well, I want to do more than I want to go through 2 nights. That's my goal.
That's cool.
If you break the course record, Dave, you can invite Ben onto your next podcast.
Yeah.
We'll interview the 3 of us. Will interview you.
Yeah.
All honesty, Pato, I think if you can do 2 nights, mate, you'll be close enough to the pointy end to see the end of it.
Yeah.
Well,
don't just go there and think I can't win, therefore I've done enough now and I can stop.
Oh yeah, look, I mean, doing this podcast as well, like it's given me a lot of tips, but it's also put a lot of pressure on as well to do well.
I'll take all of that back.
But it's good because it means like it's given me another reason not to drop out. Like when it gets hard, like I'll just keep on going. I don't want to embarrass myself.
Nah, you'll never embarrass yourself.
Don't worry, Dave. Don't worry about the big numbers that you see, around the country. If you run through 2 nights at MVP, you'll absolutely be in the final few.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, I can't wait. Thanks for coming on again, guys.
No worries, mate. I'll see you on Friday night.
Yep, sounds good.
See you all.
All right. See ya.
Fellas.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, it would be awesome if you could share, comment, like, subscribe, all of that. If you've got any feedback, shoot me a message. Hope you have a great day. See ya.